100 miles west of Lincoln.
Good evening. This is the January 8th.
20 miles west of Grand Island.
Good evening. Welcome to the January 8th, 2024 Bethel Local School, Bethel Board of Education Organizational Meeting. It is 6:32 and we are ready to start the evening tonight. I would like to ask if everybody could join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Hagan, could you administer the oath of office, please, to our new members?
Sure. I assume we're going to go in alphabetical order. That would make things easier, right?
Sure.
Mrs. Butler? Should I stand up? Might be better. Yeah. Just repeat after me. I, Reagan Butler.
I, Reagan Butler,
Do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear
That I will support the constitutions of the United States in the state of Ohio.
that I will support the constitutions of the United States and the state of Ohio,
And that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as board member
discharge my duties as board member
in and for the said Bethel Local School District,
in and for the said Bethel School District,
Miami County, Ohio,
Miami County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect. I need to keep
That's here you go. And hereafter
and hereafter
to be enacted
to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you want to have a cheat sheet or you want to just repeat after me? Okay. I, Jackie Leskowich,
I, Jacqueline Leskowich,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States and the state of Ohio,
of the United States and the state of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as board member in and for
as board member and for
the said local school district, Bethel Local School District,
the said local Bethel School District,
Miami County, Ohio,
Miami County, Ohio,
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and within accordance with the laws and
and hereafter to be enacted
hereafter to be enacted
during my continuance in said office
during my continuance in said office
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
Congratulations. Hi. Well, it's nice to meet you. I don't think we formally met yet. Okay. Is it B? Okay, I want to make sure I say it right. I, Andy B,
I, Andy B,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the constitutions of the United States
that I will support the constitutions of the United States
and the state of Ohio,
and the state of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as board member
discharge my duties as board member
in and for the said Bethel Local School District
in and
for
for the said Bethel Local School District,
Miami County, Ohio,
Miami County, Ohio,
to the best of my abilities
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with laws now in effect
and in accordance with laws now in effect
and hereafter to be enacted.
and hereafter to be enacted.
And during my continuance in said office
During my continuance in said office
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
and until my successor is chosen and qualified.
There you go.
Congratulations, Regan and Jackie and Andy. Welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Now we will open nominations for president of the board for school year, for calendar year, excuse me, 2024. And I would like to ask if anybody has a nomination, if you would like to make that now, that would be acceptable.
I'd like to nominate Jackie Leskowitz for board president.
Jackie, do you accept the nomination? Are there any other, I'm sorry, are there any other nominations on the floor at this time? Then nominations are closed for president. Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
I accept.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
I think at this time, then, Ms. Leskowitz will be the new president of the board for 2024, and she'll assume the role and pick up the nominations for vice president at this time.
So I'd like to open up nominations. I'd like to open up nominations for vice president.
I would like to nominate Regan Butler for vice president. She will accept.
Yes, I'll accept.
Any other nominations? Ms. Reagan, Ms. Hageman, please call the roll, please.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Accept, yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
All right, before we move into our business, myself and the two other newly elected board members would like to make a short comment. I would like to take this opportunity to personally and publicly thank several people. I thank God for all my blessings and for giving me the ability to serve in such a way as being a school board member. I truly believe my purpose in life was to follow a path of promoting education. A huge thank you to my biggest supporters, my husband Jim, and our two wonderful kids, Mason and Bailey. You are always behind me 100% in all my endeavors. I could not do this with all of you by my side. And thank you to all of those who have supported and or entrusted me through your vote to occupy a seat on Bethel Local Schools Board of Education. I'm extremely humbled to be a part of a leadership team responsible for shaping our children's education and to successfully prepare them for the workforce, vocational training, or college. I proudly serve my country, and I am just as proud to serve my community. Thank you.
I want to thank, first of all, God and the strength that He gives me to answer the call to serve the community on the school board. Secondly, my family and all the support.
my beautiful wife and my wonderful kids and all the stuff they've had to put up with, and the community for trusting me with their vote and to be on the school board. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say ditto, but I just really am excited to serve this community in this school district. I mean, I don't think there's a better place to be on earth, and I've been a lot of places. You're gonna have to get used to it. I get emotional. I'm so grateful to be able to serve the people of this community, the wonderful people who work in this school, and the children who will gain the skills that they need to ensure that they have a happy and productive life. And I just want to thank you. It's been a truly humbling experience.
Next for item number 3, organizational meeting items on the consent agenda. What items, if any, do the board members wish to remove from the consent agenda so they can be discussed individually?
Like, we haven't done roll call yet, so should we go back and do roll call and then swear in the president?
I believe I have roll call here. Because we're gonna get all the items off of the consent agenda, if anyone wants them. There's 4 different items me personally would like to have removed, because they are a little bit more in detail, and the consent agenda was only supposed to be just for items that are quick, like authority to pay the bills, authority to invest, stuff like that. These other items that I'm gonna mention, like the standing committee assignments, dates and times for the board meetings, standing board of education resolution authority, certain actions, and the approval resolution authorizing superintendent treasurer to serve as purchasing agent is going to be more than just a quick yay or nay. Okay. So is there any, so does anyone else have any items that they'd like to have removed? I would like to, I would request items A, F, Indigo, and Juliet be removed. We'll move items A, F, I, and J to follow the consent agenda items. The remaining consent agenda items are as follows: Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Golf, Hotel, and Kilo. If there's no objection, it's easier that way. These items will be adopted. Are there any objections? Because there are no objections, these items are adopted. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on these consent items? Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Golf, Hotel, and Kilo. It is moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda items. We'll put the motion to a vote. Those in favor of adopting the motion to accept the consent agenda items, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Golf, Hotel, and Kilo, will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
We will now move to the regular meeting agenda items, Alpha, Foxtrot, Indigo, and Juliet. Items A, standing committee assignments. We need to appoint liaisons and committee members to for the calendar year 2024. I'd like to entertain a motion to appoint an OSBA legislative liaison. That's the Ohio State Board of Ohio State Board of Association.
Ohio School Boards
School Board
Association.
Association, thank you. For the liaison for that, the Miami Valley CTC, the Career Technical Center liaison, a student activities liaison, and board chairs for both technology and facilities committees. Is there a motion?
Do you want those individually? Or
Yes, we're going to go,
okay.
because first off, I would like, and I mean, this is just a suggestion, but this is this is one suggestion. I would like to know what responsibilities there are for each one of these positions before somebody asks to fill them. So I think it would be helpful if somebody could go over what all these roles and responsibilities are for each. So for instance, OSBA legislative liaison, what does that mean?
That's what I've been doing for the last few years, reporting on legislation affecting education through the state legislature.
And then what do you do?
Report.
Report it to us? And then do we follow up with a policy? Or when you report, then what actions taken after reporting?
No,
So
they're just reports.
what benefit are those reports? What value added are those reports if we report on legislation and then
Hopefully it
act
keeps
on?
the board and the community apprised of what's going on in the state.
But when it's somewhat like, for example, House Bill 33, that affected a whole bunch of different items in our policies. So wouldn't that also be maybe a role and responsibility of that position?
Has not been.
This is open for discussion. So this is, does anybody else feel that, so if just, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we could just look up legislation, but it would be helpful if you brought it to the board and then we would have a heads up on when policies are going to be affected, rather than waiting for Neola to do the 2 times a year reviews of policy, perhaps. I don't know, it just seems like rather than just having a liaison to come back and tell us that there's stuff that changed. If we don't,
It
if we
doesn't have
can't,
anything to do with school policy as such.
but how, I
Correct?
might be
And-
not,
and- pardon.
wouldn't it, don't we only care about the legislation that affects school policy?
We only care about that.
I mean, as far as you reporting it, wouldn't we only want to know about the legislation that affects the schools?
Yes.
Right.
Isn't that what
Am
I
I
said?
off here?
Isn't that what I said?
I just.
In the past, Danny pays close attention and will bring in things that he's caught along the way. And I have to say, sometimes I'm not tracking every single one of them. So he will bring in some updates, monthly updates, and then that gives us the edge to go out and do a little more research. And that's how we've been using that position over the past few years.
So maybe could we switch gears and maybe that person could do the research and then bring it to the board? So like, for example, I went to the OSBA conference and they had a 2-hour block on all these different legislative changes that happened. And one of them, a big one, was the reading guarantee and the scientific reading, or reading of science. And so what's coming down the chute is teachers, meaning math teachers, science teachers, reading teachers, intervention specialists, all of them are going to be required to have special training to teach the scientifics of reading. So what I'm saying is, if you're the liaison, that would have been good information for you to report back to the board to, so we can start, even if we don't write it in policy right away, at least we can start setting ourselves up to implement this training. Because if this training is due next school year and is January, and I didn't see that in the current policy review, I just would rather be reactive and not, or be proactive and not reactive, is what I'm saying.
I attended that conference also, not that particular session. But you can't go to all, as you know.
Right.
There, you can't go to all.
No, but I'm not the liaison.
Right.
But it was helpful, I mean.
I don't report on things that aren't finalized. For example, tonight's report features Senate Bill 91 because it's actually passed. House Bill 68, since it was just vetoed, et cetera, et cetera. But when things are in committee, they're just being discussed. I don't normally bring those things up because they're still being worked on.
Right, I totally agree with that, but like House Bill 33 has been passed, and it affected, and as a matter of fact, it affected a whole bunch of policies that we're gonna review this evening. So I guess I'm just trying to get everybody to discuss what you think the OSBA liaison should be, other than giving us a heads up that there was a bill that passed. Which we probably get off of the news headlines. So all I'm trying to say is if it's value added to have this liaison, let's have this liaison. If it's not value added, let's exhaust those efforts into something else. As I suggested, this is a board collaboration, not a.
Do you feel that it's valuable information? How do you receive the same notification from OSBA?
Oh, yeah, yes, sure do. I get them from OSBA, BASA, I get them from different places. Typically, I don't know what the experience has been long-term here for that position in Bethel, but typically it is just that is because what you're getting ready to embark on is a multifaceted, very complex thing. And if you work, can't do it all. And so I think some of these committees evolved out of that piece. Where, I can't read all those legislative updates that come out that are emailed by OSBA. So one person takes that and then comes and says, okay, here's the relevant stuff that I think pertains to us or is going to. So that's what I've seen in that rule, not just here, but in other districts. So to answer your question, is it helpful? Depends if you listen to your, just it depends if, you need that. If you're a busy person, you don't have time to dig into all that stuff. It's nice to have one of your colleagues, your team members, be able to come and bring you up to speed on what's happening.
So that makes perfect sense. So can we add to that another role and responsibility will be that you will bring legislative changes to the board that will affect policy, and which policies that they will affect? Thank you. And then perhaps maybe even make a note if, I don't know how many people plan on going to next November's conference, but at least the liaison should also be, part of their duties is to attend all the policy briefing changes. As a suggestion, I'm just suggesting this, so everybody can feel free to, agree, disagree.
Well, again, you can't attend them all.
But that would
There's
be-
8 at a time going on.
But I'm only asking you to attend
I
one.
understand. But there may be more than. Right.
Would you want to be the liaison?
Well, that's fine. I have interest.
Then will you also do that? Okay. And then we can make a note, so anybody looking at what they expect from the liaison will know that they expect them to bring in any kind of legislative changes that have been passed. They'll attend the OSBA conferences that specifically pertain to policy changes coming down the chute. And then what else? That any other changes that affect policy, you bring those to the board? Or affect the school with any kind of necessary actions that may take on?
Yeah.
And then you would like to continue? Mhm. And then the next one is the Miami Valley CTC liaison. So I guess what I envision this person doing is conveying struggles, requirements, what's working well, accomplishments, provide updates on scheduled field trips, registration process, etc.
I have been for the past year the CTC liaison, and every month I do try to bring in accomplishments of the students that are attending there. I try to bring events that are on the horizon and dates and deadlines, for example, of registration, and I'm trying to think what else. I think that's the bulk of it. That's what I've tried to do anyway. And was there anything else on there?
I was just saying, like, convey struggles, kind of, as liaison. So if there's something going on, or like if there's conflict in a calendar, perhaps, like we experience or something like that, that you want to bring up right away back to the board, so we would have a heads up. Any kind of requirements when they have registration coming up, when there's field trips coming up. I know a lot of depending on what grade you're in, they all get to go on the field trips to go, and then perhaps maybe even the night that the parents get to come, because that would be helpful, because I don't know about some of your kids, but mine would always bring home all the information. So it'd be nice if it was officially sent out to everybody.
And I do try to stay in regular contact with the two guidance counselors here when they are available as well, to make sure we're in step with what I report out on the regular board meetings. And I would like to do that again unless somebody else would like to take on that role. I'm very happy to do that.
Appreciate it. Want to fight for board?
That's okay.
Don't say it on.
Won't wrestling board now.
Student activities liaison, I believe this might have been reworded perhaps. Do you want to talk to that or?
Yes, this past year, it was a lot of updates of what's going on inside the school.
Athletic honors, musicals, etc., student activities.
Yeah, student activities. Some of those are posted on the websites, you know, through the elementary, you know, the different grade, school websites, but then not everybody goes out and reads them all. So, and then it was a way to make sure that the general information was getting out to everybody.
Generally, when things are over, a quick report on what to come.
Could we possibly include booster clubs, PTO? And then convey any struggles, requirements, that what's working well, accomplishments, it's not working well within the booster club or PTO. I know, like for example,
We don't have anything to do.
I know, but if it's an activity, a student activity, if you're the
They're
liaison.
separate identities,
They're separate.
they're separate entities, they don't.
Oh, you
use
can?
anything.
We don't have anything to do.
Right, not to do with them, but you can't report back on any issues. So like the PTO, for example, they're struggling to get a fence put in the playground over at elementary school. So I guess if I was thinking a liaison could convey that to the board, or would the normal business be, would the PTO have to come to the board after going through the normal chain of command? So if they've already accomplished the chain of command, then they come to the board and then we don't need that liaison. Is that what everybody's saying?
It's just, I think so.
Okay, so the liaison, did you guys say if there is value added to having a student activities liaison reporting the games and events?
Oh, yeah. Anytime you can report everything that's going good. We need to do it.
Normally, that's what's good stuff, is normally it's what's.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree then, well, I'll cross up all that stuff and it's just gonna be basically different events and awards, maybe the sports awards and stuff like that, at the end of the year
Yeah.
awards and those types of things and who wants to do that?
We'll do it.
All right, and then the technology committee. Maybe we want to talk to that? About what that person's responsibility would be?
We haven't had,
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
probably in 2 years we haven't had one. That's,
it's always brought up and
yeah.
never anybody that volunteered. Not to be the lead of it, but be on.
Right.
Yeah.
Could we entertain that then? Are you guys on board with the technology committee?
They have one? Do you?
No,
Okay, not at all.
no, Mr. King is the head of the technology committee. As such, but really.
And I was that liaison the prior year, and the intent was to regularly interact maybe once or twice during the school year, maybe once a semester with the technology director, and have a group of other team members from like elementary, middle school, high school, and just different let's say offices, if you will, to try to make sure that everybody, you know, if there was any issues or problems, it was being coordinated throughout. gave everybody an opportunity, but I know that we were right in the middle of getting some Chromebooks stood up at the time. So I know when I was doing it, we didn't have much of a chance that year to do that. So, and then same thing this past year, so.
So,
Hardware, you're just, I said hardware, is that what?
It's mostly been that.
Whatever it can be,
software
whatever we want it to be.
usages.
what I envision, so it's a committee.
The
not-
idea was brought up 4 years ago.
I believe other schools do technology, and it's an actual committee, it wouldn't be a liaison. So what I would envision is, it'd be chaired by a board member, maximum of 2, so we avoid violating the sunshine law. But that would drive the train, and then the technology director would be the overall one providing input and stuff. And that person, the technology director, should be providing input, appoints the committee members. So perhaps we have a couple of teachers on that committee. If anybody out in the public would like to get involved, it'd be helpful to have them involved and developing a technology plan. Do they have a technology plan? It's just another avenue. If we break down all the chunks of all these things we need to get done, and we need to know about, and we need to plan for and forecast for. And their meetings would follow the Sunshine Law Act, or well, Sunshine Law, that's the same thing. And then it would be chaired by 1 or 2 of us. And then, like I said, the technology director would be there for all the key inputs. And then, like you had talked about, the tech refreshes, and then you could bring that information back to the board and explain what's happening. We could project any kind of expenses, or if we know that we're gonna have next year the $35,000 bill that's coming up because we have to replace, 500 Chromebooks, and then the next year we're gonna place another 500 in the next year. Or if there's like printer requirements or different requirements that, or even identifying how people identify requirements. So, identifying how does the staff identify their technology requirements, and then how do they bring them to you, Ms. Hageman? How does the technology department bring the requirements to you, so you know what their budget could be, and how do they develop their own budget and then present it to you?
No, there hasn't been really a very good budget process in place yet. Mr. Crispin and I are working on doing that for the upcoming school year. So, no, we just try to guess, and I agree, there needs to be some kind of plan in place. But we do not have one currently, correct?
Correct.
Do you think it would be helpful then?
It could be helpful, done correctly, yes. Mhm.
And everybody else agree that we'll try and spin it back up and then work on.
What's gonna happen? We'll have a committee and no one goes. I mean, I don't know, but
And
that's a
minimum-
terrible thing, but at least put the effort in.
At minimum, the technology director would be there, because that's his job. And then a board member would be there, if not 2. If 2 want to take this task on, that's fine too. So at minimum, we'd have 2. And then perhaps if we can get some teachers involved, and then try to, work the schedule so it's not too impactful, but I think it's needed. And I think it would have value added. And I think that it would narrow down the focus with all the SME, the subject matter experts, figuring out all this and then bring it up to the board and then seeing where that fits in our mission and vision.
I think it's worth trying again.
I think so. I mean, if we can get it running, I think it would be beneficial to the district to be able to have that plan and know what we're doing.
Is the technology director right now directed to provide a plan? So does the technology director work for you?
Yes.
Okay. So do you get a plan from him? Like, do you require him to make a plan?
He has goals, and those goals generally involve, what's next and what's coming up with the district, and needs both for teachers in the classroom, as well as, the bigger things for servers and surveillance cameras and those types.
So I'd like to see perhaps even develop a mission statement, and then, like I said, revise the budget, and then already talked about the other member, even a principal wanted to join the committee, and then sunshine laws apply. So it sounds like that we're gonna go with that one as well. Does anybody want to chair that committee? Anybody else want to join me? It's voluntarily.
Although
Thanks, Andy. And facilities committee. What does that committee do?
Facilities committee met once a month, not more than that, actually. During the construction of the building, the new building and the stadium. And once the punch list is done, I don't know that there'd be much to do with facilities wise.
Do you guys,
I'd like to continue on that through till the punch list. I've been a part of that committee since I was elected to the board in early 22, and I'd like to finish that out and continue to participate. And I think we just make sure that we're all following and try to give the reports out to during the regular board meetings. So it will go on for a little while longer, probably to potentially the end of the school year, and before it's all wrapped up for the new elementary school building, at least through March, I know.
The committee was more important when all the decisions were being made for both facilities. For my 4 or 5 months, Mr. Crispin has been giving us updates that come from Peterson Construction, and that's until it's done.
how do we identify requirements for facilities? Meaning like, how do we know, the boiler is good for 20 years and we're in year 18, so it looks like that we're probably going to have to looking at replacing a boiler, or recurring maintenance that is done on the facilities. Who manages?
Those kind of things didn't fall under us. That's just.
Would they cost money, right?
Sure, they cost money, but we don't. The school board would approve the purchase of something by the superintendent or not. We don't. That's not our field. It's not ours. So.
I guess I was looking at it more like a big picture. So as far as looking across the board, and even having like some what if plans in place too, because what if that annexation happens? What are we going to do? So are we going? Okay, then what are we going to do with the facilities that we have? So I guess I'm envisioning to again be a little bit more proactive and start determining, well, if it does go through 1,700 homes, 2 per family. Maybe, I mean, everything is speculation. That's 3,500 additional, is that right? 32, 3,400, thank you. It should not be public, I should not have that all ever, but yeah, so I would envision that would be part of the discussion, and they would also have their own mission statement about what is the mission of the facilities. Well, it's a facilities coordinator, facilities grounds and maintenance, and even all the grounds stuff, that's all included.
It's so.
No, we didn't have anything. We don't have anything. It's not our.
I know we didn't, but this is this year. This is what the organizational meeting is for, right?
I was gonna say, I know this facilities committee was a separate entity of its own. I don't know if a separate mission statement was created at that time, just it happened before.
I think before this was a facilities construction committee. And I think what I'm asking is, would there be value added in a facilities committee to develop facility plans and
planning.
yes, and project when these things are going to break down, all the equipment that they have, the tractors, who does all the maintenance on that, the tires that they replace, all of that. It all costs money, so you can't just come to the board and say we need $20 for a new tire to get fixed or a new plug or something like that. They have to know that, in 3 years that this is going to break down, or in 3 years it's gone through its natural capacity of lifespan or life cycle.
Did they not already project that out and plan that?
It doesn't sound like it, because we're talking about a facilities construction committee, and I was on the assumption it was a facilities committee. That's why I wanted to just outline.
It was just a facilities construction.
Okay,
It
so
was set up 5 years ago when the So all the numbers started coming in, et cetera, and applying for the state aid to build it, and that kind of construction stuff. It had nothing to do with everyday maintenance, everyday failures, et cetera. Yeah.
But we could, right? Because you're saying that some of the budgeting is our guesses, right?
No, I don't. What we do is, what I do is I look at what the trend has been over the last 3 to 5 years. And if we know we haven't had any, high cost expenditures, where are we with that? So you talk to Todd Bird and you talk to others and try to put together a budget for that. So it's not really just a guess. We try to look at the trend and see where we're going. But you know, as I said, this district hasn't had a real good budgeting process in place. And so we're working on doing something better with that. I do not think the board needs to be involved in the day-to-day maintenance. But I do agree that a 5-year plan should probably be presented for the board to discuss and, you know, approve. So, but that would be something handled by Mr. Crispin or me or both of us and the administrators. So
We already
present
have
it to you.
spending units.
Yeah.
We already have spending units. If it's under the limit, and Mr. Crispin and Tina approve it, then good.
Right. So I didn't mean to insinuate you just guessed the budget, but I thought you said that it's been
We don't have a good
exercise.
process in place of what I've done in just different districts. So we're working, that's one of our goals this year is to work on a better process for all of us. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and I think this would be a good process. And you, as a finance or treasury person, you should not have to go and hunt down Todd Bird to find out what expenses he's got coming up or what he's gonna spend for next year.
No, agreed.
He should be coming to you,
Right,
and he should develop.
That should be a
plan.
collaborative meeting.
right.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that's what we're hoping to work towards this
This year.
late winter, early spring with the building principals as well as all our supervisors is kind of like site-based budgeting. And but you know, it is Todd Bird who's going to tell us what is coming down the road, what's going to be need replaced. I don't know that. She doesn't know that.
Exactly.
Nor does the board.
Right.
And so the same with, you know, transportation, the whole bit. So we'll get there, but it is a collaborative. It is us sitting down with those folks, talking about maintenance needs, enhancement needs, and you know, projecting down the road.
Right, and come up with a plan, and the purpose of having a board member on there is because it's our responsibility, and you know, I'm new at this, so feel free to correct me or whatever, but as far as I understand, it's our job to develop the vision, the mission statement, the direction we want to take the school, all of that, and it's you guys' job to operate it. So we should be coming to you saying, here's our vision of where we're gonna go into the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever, and then you're gonna help us get there. And so by having a board member on this committee, then that would help drive the train, right? So I'm not saying that the board member knows anything about facilities. The board member would just orchestrate it. And then the facilities coordinator, director, grounds maintenance director, that Mr. Bird basically would provide all this information based off of what our vision and mission is.
The district currently has a vision and mission statement. And so that's, you know, once that is set, you know, maybe you all want to revisit that and work it. Especially, you know, you hear about that, what that process was and what it wasn't. But once that's set, then it's up to us and the folks that we employ under us to carry out that mission and vision. And for us to report back and say, here's what's happening in facilities. Here's what's happening in technology, athletics, high school English, etc. So usually those things don't involve the board.
But they could, right? So like suppose that we envision adding 5 new classes next year. This is not me brought up in the meeting. I'm not asking for motion. I'm just saying, what if we, as a board had decided that, hey, we'd really like to see 5 new classes next year because it'll expose the kids to more different things or have different options, or maybe get them out of one of the study halls or something like that. And so if we're into that and trying to develop all that, that's where it'd be helpful if you had one of the board members there to drive that train, because that's gonna drive a facilities requirement. So what classrooms are they gonna participate in? What are the requirements for each of those classes? What are those gonna be? So again, it'd be a collaborative effort with everybody, instead of you guys going off and meeting based off of what the mission statement was or our vision, and then coming back to the board saying that we'd like to buy these things. Whereas if we have a vision that in the next 10 years, we're gonna add 5 new classes, or we're gonna add artificial intelligence, or we're gonna add the artificial intelligence security system. Maybe that's a vision that we have, that we can go to that, where you've got artificial intelligence that will pick up on weapons in the parking lot, or cars that don't belong, or if those are all of our visions, we can't start thinking about it today and then buy it tomorrow. And as far as like what you're saying is, you guys do the operations, we do the vision and setting the path for school to go.
The board typically sets policy and evaluate the treasurer and superintendent. That's the function of the board.
That's our job.
And
We're not supposed to be doing
you're not supposed to have a vision for,
that. Agreed, we said policy.
oh yeah, I don't disagree about all that. Also, all I'm asking is, this is board decision of, and you guys too, like your input or whatever, as far as value added by having a facilities committee chaired by at least one board member, if not 2, that was also basically co-chaired by the supervisor of buildings and grounds, Mr. Bird, or whoever's filling that position as a key player, doing scheduling, coordinating meetings and stuff like that. Maybe if we do envision, let's just suppose we envision an FFA class coming in. Maybe we need the science teacher involved, or somebody familiar with that. And then that person could also be part of that committee to define what kind of requirements that's going to drive, and then come back to the board and say, okay, these are all the requirements. If you guys want an FFA class at Bethel, these are all the requirements that we're going to need, and this is how much it's going to cost. So I guess that's what I feel like I'm not communicating.
I think we're getting in the weeds.
Yeah.
I think you're getting in the weeds. Not trying to get each of these captions. Trying to put them all under the same one. And that's not. First of all, you go back to the technology committee, we never had a volunteer. This one, we had volunteers, we had public district citizens who were interested and did a nice job, did a real nice job. That construction's almost over. We still have a little bit left on the stadium and the punch list. And yes, we're going to have more students. In fact, we just reached the 2,000. Is that correct?
Yes. Hit it again.
2,000 mark. That's right. So we will need more facilities, but we can't do it right now.
So
And maintenance on large ticket items is not. It's sure plan on it, but that's not our. That's a daily operation. That's not us.
do you want a facilities committee or no?
To carry on after the completion of the.
Yeah, not a facilities construction committee. Now, I guess go back to that. Do we need a facilities construction liaison? It wouldn't be a committee, it'd just be a liaison. No, okay. And then your feelings on facilities committee?
I'd like to see us get through this year with punch list and facilities. And then revisit this when that is done to see where we need to go. Okay. After that.
What is your?
That's a good idea. I need some time to think about this, so, yeah.
That's fine. And then you guys?
That's fine. Just, everything can't be done at once. Everything in education happens, I like to say, it's names, but it glacial. And
It does. Bureaucracy at its finest.
And Andy?
I think revisiting today.
Madam President, just that. I think at some point you're gonna need something. I mean, we know,
Yeah.
the annexation is gonna happen, we're already full at the elementary. The way our numbers are going at the high school and the bubbles going. I think at some point we're gonna have to, either have a subcommittee, or it's definitely gonna become a topic for this group that we will bring forward once we have a better look at our live birth data, have a look at scheduling once we can get the 10 forms back to the high school students. Perhaps then, we put together a subcommittee to look at, okay, what's next? How we can utilize the older building, the original building, and those types of things. Don't want you to think we're ignoring the
That's what I
subject.
think it's-
It's there.
No, we
It's-
need
No,
to-
and I'm not saying, I'm just saying that if Tina.
It's gonna be a
said yes,
necessity
yeah,
at some point.
Yeah.
It's
If she
gonna
has-
transition from what we've been doing
Right,
to looking forward and where we headed, how do we prepare for it beyond.
okay. Does anyone else have anything to discuss? So we've got, Mr. Elam as the OSB liaison, correct? And then we've got Mrs. Donahue as the CTC liaison. Student activities, you said you would. Board chair for technology committee, myself and Mr. B. And we're gonna name the facilities committee.
I think we're gonna have that. It's still going to do the punch list.
Oh, I'm sorry, so it's actually facilities construction
Yeah, so it'll
liaison.
be, so it'll be Natalie.
Thank you.
Until that wraps up, and then we can.
So it is moved and seconded to appoint Mr. Elam as OSBA Legislative Liaison, Mrs. Donahue as the Miami Valley CTC Liaison, Mrs. Butler as Student Activities Liaison, Mrs. Leskowich and Mr. Veith as the Board Chairs for the Technology Committee, Mrs. Donahue for the Construction Liaison, Facilities Construction Liaison. These members that I just read as liaisons and committee chairs will, as their names are called, answer yes, and those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Elam,
yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowich.
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
Mr. Elam, it looked like that you had a question in the mid.
I was listening to something. Okay,
Oh, well, it was on the consent agenda to vote on these items. So now we're going on to item F. Item F, dates and times of regular board meetings. We need to determine our 2024 board schedule for the meetings. I'd like to entertain a motion to conduct work sessions and regular meetings in the Bethel High School Media Center on the second and third Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. Motion.
Did you move?
everyone's moved.
No, so I need that's what's on the table, or I can leave it blank, but then we're gonna do a motion, if we can get a motion, and then we have to get somebody to second it, and then when we discuss, then we can discuss when it is, I'm not asking you to vote on the third and second,
I'll
third.
move.
I'll second. Just want to make sure.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Yeah, and then, and so now, does anyone wish to discuss?
Yes. I'm all for going on Tuesday. There's other people that couldn't show up, that couldn't be here on Tuesday. The work session days every month, in my opinion, are necessary. Showing that there won't be some work sessions. when needed, great. I don't feel like they're needed. Everything is online, everything's on YouTube, so everybody can see everything that happens. Everybody can see board docs, they have access to board docs, etc. But they can ask questions before the meeting. That's my feeling.
And that's Mrs. Cox.
Well, my feeling, I mean, sorry, everybody. My feeling is the majority is new. And some of the discussion going on here tonight that could have been held in a work session, and we could have had, you know, a smoother flow of the meeting. And so I think that work sessions are really valuable, especially for the new board members, because we're all together. We all have the opportunity to discuss it with Mr. Elam and Ms. Donahue right there to help process and Mr. But I'd really like to move them to Tuesday, because as the agenda comes out and then we keep getting more and more information. If you're working, it's hard for you to to refresh all the time, to be on top of that, to be doing your job, and to be keeping up with what's transpiring with what's coming in on the agenda. So it's hard for us to maybe have the discussion we need to have. So I'd really like to have work sessions.
As I've stated before, in I think probably April of this past year of 2023, I am in favor of work sessions. If they don't have to be every month, that's fine. As you know, I ask a lot of questions. I had a ton of questions this time, or that would have been helpful to have gone through before we got here. And I just think it should be done in public. Most of the questions I think that I have, maybe there's other people that have the same questions. So I think we should use those as we need them. And also it's an opportunity, as we discussed last year, to bring in other topics. If the agenda maybe isn't going to be that big, we'll talk about the 5-year plan and other things that are going on. Let's say we'll talk about annexation one time, which we did in 2022 during one meeting, during one work session. So there's opportunities for other topics to be brought along when we need them as well. And I just want to say, I like Tuesdays as well. I do know that the Tuesday work session, the Monday regular meeting has been in place for, I don't know, 15 years, 10 to 15 years probably. And, I know a lot of people have already built their schedules around that cadence. So I don't want to shut out those people is my only concern for that, moving away from a Monday night. But I do know that there's other conflicts that other people have. So I'm good either way. I just don't want to lose that population of our community that has built their schedule accordingly. So I just want to add that.
It's typically the work session, you said Monday night and then followed by Tuesday board meeting.
Tuesday.
Oh, so the Tuesday work session followed by a week later board meeting.
Yeah.
So do you have any input on having a work session this Tuesday and the next Tuesday having regular board meeting?
I'm fine with Tuesdays being regular board meetings, and I think there's value in having work sessions when needed.
So me personally, I think we need a work session every month, at least to get us started. So at a minimum. So one, it could be the agenda build, because this was exhausting getting prepared for this meeting. And it didn't have to be, because we could have nailed all this stuff in a work session. It could have been done. Two, I agree that we want as much public participation as possible, but this is our meeting. It has to be it has to be around, that's welcome to the, I don't know how to say this, but it's our meeting that they're invited to witness, basically. But if we had a work session, that's where we can get the input. It doesn't help us to get, we're ready to vote on something. We have the agenda build. We think that we've got all the ducks in a line, and we know for sure that this is the right choice for the students, for the mission, for all that. And then we get somebody who comes up here during the public participation and has an excellent point that we completely didn't even see. And really, realistically, we should not be voting then. And so now that agenda item gets pushed back to the next meeting where all of that could be addressed in the work session. We'd still have another week to go back and prepare for the actual regular meeting. And these meetings should go bam, bam, bam. The heart of it will be the work session. And then these will be pretty much fine tuned. And we might still miss something out of the work session or whatever. But we do have it online. So I know that what you're saying, that some people really enjoy that schedule, whatever, for whatever, but there's always gonna be a conflict, and we cannot possibly schedule for, the entire district. So if Tuesdays works for us and we're in agreement for work sessions and okay.
And we have other folks that I want to consider too. I don't know, our BEA reps, that works for them, or if they're flexible, or.
Just.
Where are we? Are you saying they're
Well, they are.
mandatory that come, or?
No.
Okay.
How's that work for y'all?
We're just the peons, y'all make your decisions.
So just so I make sure I have, just so I make sure we have this right, you want to do Tuesdays, second and third Tuesday of each month?
Well, if that works for everybody, because, so the first, we thought about first and second, but we realized that that's probably gonna be impossible for you to get the financial things done. If you look at, if we push it back to like the third and fourth Tuesday, then we've got spring break in March, Thanksgiving in November, Christmas in December. So that didn't seem feasible.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I wrote it down right correctly, second and third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a time. Does 7 work for everybody?
Work sessions, if we were to have them.
Yeah.
5:30.
Okay, then Kathy, 1 through 5:30.
Work sessions have typically been 5:30 and board meetings have been 7.
So it's up to you. So do you need it to be at 5:30? I mean, because you work and you work. And usually that's.
Oh, no, that's not serious. No.
Okay. I was thinking for consistency.
5:30. And do 5:30.
So me personally, this is my input, that I'd rather have it consistent both at the same time, but if everybody else would rather have it at 5:30.
Sometimes you sometimes.
Okay.
If the work sessions is where the bulk of the work is gonna be taken, then it probably would be better to have more time allotted. If we truly are able to get all the work done at the work sessions, and then the board meetings just go through everything that we did, then those would be pretty quick. And the work sessions I could see need to be a little earlier.
Okay. Yep. And you guys?
Serve at the will of the board.
Or separate.
That is your decision.
So
Just learning.
does anyone else have anything to discuss? So it is moved and seconded to conduct work sessions on the second and third Tuesday at 5:30 of each month.
No.
Second
I mean,
Tuesday.
I'm sorry,
5:30.
second,
That's
yes,
okay.
thank
Second
you.
Tuesday,
Yes,
5:30.
yep, at 5:30, and the third Tuesday at 7 for a regular meeting. Okay,
That's
we
okay.
will put the motion to a vote. Those that are in favor of adopting the motion to conduct work sessions on the second Tuesday at 5:30 and regular meetings on the third Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Bethel High School Media Center. will, as their names are called, answer yes, and those opposed will answer no. Mrs.
Someone.
Yeah, I think you did.
You did. You made the motion. and Ms. Donovan
Well, we had a work session, we've been through this. Mrs. Hageman, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Elam, Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes. Now we will move on to item I. Item I, Standing Board of Education Resolution authorizing certain actions. There are two resolutions on this agenda item, so we will be doing each one individually. For the first resolution, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the treasurer and superintendent to approve employment of new employees and to approve promotion or transfer of employees to higher paid positions before bringing it to the next regular Board of Education meeting for action. Motion.
I'll make a motion.
Anybody else?
I'll second that.
Does anyone wish to discuss?
So my only concern is what I've seen recently is the fact that, and I hate to see this become the precedent. I know that a coach was interviewed and told that he had the position, and I know it went out to social media before. I know I hadn't been even notified yet. And we hadn't had our board meeting yet to review the credentials, whatever, not really their credentials, but the hiring information before we approved it. And I just thought that was the cart before the horse, and that part of the hiring is what I take away from the statement there, unless I'm misunderstanding that. I do have concerns about that. It kind of forces our hand. Again, it was out in social media or posted that the new coach had been selected and a name was given and hadn't come to the board yet for final approval. And then when it comes to the board, you're kind of, you know, we hadn't had a chance to even review that yet. And you're kind of, you felt forced to, not saying that the person wasn't a good person in this case or anything like that, but it forces your hand then to accept that hiring. And I just wondered if calling a special meeting in place of that might be a better option. Again, if I'm misunderstanding that, I appreciate a different explanation.
Yeah, without the details, I can't speak specific to it, but you know, generally when you going through the process and you finalize, you know, who you're going to make an offer to, and if it's competitive, you know you want to say pending board approval, you're going to be our person, and you know, sometimes that, you know, again, we usually try to you know, release those things, make sure that it's a qualifier in there that gives the board an opportunity. You know, if something pops up or whatever that did not pop up during the process, the application process, the interview process, we can get out of. But you know, perhaps we can talk about, you know, it's never our intent to handcuff the board and you know, voting for folks and try to make sure you are aware. So apologize about that. Yeah.
And again, a recommendation. I guess I'll let it go at that, but I know it has happened a couple of times over the past 2 years, so it wasn't just this one incident, but
yeah, again, it's general practice as you put that out there, calling a special meeting. You know,
I mean, if it's time sensitive, we would anyway. It's not possible.
yeah, I'm willing to have conversations. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know, it's so old, I just, there's something about it.
Come back to you.
Well, I actually added this to the board agenda when I got here as treasurer, and the reason for that was in situations where you need to have somebody fill a spot like an aide in a classroom. You're asking that teacher or that aide to wait until the board meeting. This gives the superintendent the authorization once they have, gotten their background check done and they're allowed to be in the classroom with the kids. And all of that is done, then we can put them in the classroom, give the help as quickly as we possibly can. Meet with the board and say it's effective on such and such date. So yeah, you're giving the treasurer, which I only have like 3 people, 4 people, and the superintendent the authority to say, this is the most qualified person. They've met all these requirements and are allowed to be in the classroom to assist. And then get them started as quickly as we possibly can. It's been difficult sometimes to fill spaces and to get things done. And when I first got here, Mr. Ferks and I were, trying to get everybody on the agenda, but what if somebody's background check comes the day after a board meeting? So you want me to schedule another board meeting the next day, or because it doesn't happen. I wish it would, but it doesn't. We work at the state's when you're waiting on that stuff. So that's why why I asked that to be added and 22, I think, when I got here. So
Is there a reason why we just can't write a policy and then it's always on the books and then it's tailored to whatever your needs for those situations arise? And then we don't have to bring it up every year in
well, I mean, I think that's up to the board. I'm not sure if anybody's ever put this in policy.
Yes.
I don't think it's a
I'm accustomed to
policy.
this.
Yeah, I mean, it's something for the board discussion and give us the authorization to do each year, so.
I can ask.
Yeah, we can certainly ask, but I don't think it's a policy.
We don't
I guess-
hire people. He hires people, she hires people, we don't.
Right, but we approve
We
it.
approve it,
And
that's
so,
right.
so
And
for,
so pending board approval is normally what we see.
so I think this is gonna come up later, so you might as well bring it up now. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't get a chance to look at the latest item added on the agenda for the next meeting. But is there an individual that they're getting ready to hire, I believe custodial, that is going to be hired in at a step 10 and he has 1 year of experience? Is that correct?
That's what it said. That's what the,
And that's my point of why you would not want to do this before the board gets to see it. Is all I'm saying. But I'll say my discussion points next, but so if we'll get to it then, I guess, but that'd be an example of why we would want to, yes, you're right. They vet them, they interview them, they do all that, they figure out who's the best person because they're responsible for the operations. But we're ultimately responsible again to make sure that whoever they hire fits in submission, vision. They're not getting overpaid for that position, maybe even underpaid, whatever the case may be. And all of these things need to get ironed out. Because again, I'm with you, Natalie. I felt the same way that if you start advertising, hey, and especially if it's a well-liked community member, and then you bring it up to the board after it's been advertised, everybody and their brother, and then what if we have to say, that's not gonna work because for reasons X, Y, and Z. And I just don't want to put anybody in that position as well. Mr. Heath, do you have any points to make in the discussion? I had a question. So if this were to be approved, would that give you the authority to fill those TESOL positions that we discussed in December? There was an assistant superintendent, athletic director, and I always forget the third person. Wasn't there 3 duty descriptions that we?
3 job descriptions.
Job descriptions that we had, the board had approved in December. And so if we authorize you guys to improve employment of new employees or promotion or transfer of employee. So the way I understood the TESOL positions was, let's say we had a teacher who wanted to be a superintendent, that teacher could move over into that assistant superintendent position without having the required licensure for But I thought that that's what you guys,
No. We have to be.
is that what?
We have to be properly licensed.
I had some follow-up on that myself that I haven't done yet because
Okay, so that's what I thought I heard. So the TESOL positions, so, okay, so that's not the right requirements. Could you fill those? We are in agreement though, that there's 3 TESOL job descriptions that were approved in December, is that correct?
2.
Okay, 2, okay. One of them being the assistant superintendent and one,
Being a student, athletic coordinator.
okay, so those 2. So if we pass this, would this give you the authority to fill those positions?
To give me I could. But there's a process, post them. Generally keep the board informed of those processes, when those, those positions get posted, what our plan is. Just.
Okay. Yeah, and we've already discussed about the emergency situation. And again, the whole thing, if you have somebody telling them that they have the job, then for some reason the board disapproves it, it doesn't seem like that's an efficient process. Whereas if it would be part of the process of going through the board, other than those emergency situations like you discussed, or and that's why it would be good to have those written in policy saying that in these certain circumstances, the treasurer and superintendent are authorized to do X, Y, and Z, and then it's on the books. Do you have any more?
I would probably say the best thing to do is offer the position, but let's not post it publicly before the board's approved. Would probably be a good idea. But I think where the issue came in, because I saw it on social media that so-and-so was the new coach.
Put out by the district.
Yes. Yes.
We'll have to check on that wording, so, yeah, usually.
I mean,
usually
probably.
The one I saw, it said pending.
It
But,
But I think we're saying is, it was just advertised, so it's saying that, yes, we're gonna hire Mr. So-and-so for a coaching position, as long as the board's okay with it. And then we feel that that puts us in a bad position, because if for whatever reason, let's just say that we had to disapprove it for whatever reason, we've already advertised it to the community that this really great coach is gonna be hired, and now the board is the one that canceled it, or disapproved it, or denied it, or. So I think that, isn't that what you're saying? By advertising it?
Yeah, I just don't really want, I mean, you need to offer the person the position and saying pending and doing all that, but until it's been board approved, not to put it on social media, not to advertise that this is a new coach until that's been done, just to eliminate any confusion or difficult situation on their part, on the part of the board.
Is it?
District is.
Yes. A department.
It's a planning board.
It is.
But it's still an announcement of a person's name, who's not yet approved.
Is there anything else to discuss? So it is moved and seconded to authorize the treasurer and superintendent to approve deployment of new employees and to approve promotion or transfer of employees to higher paid positions before bringing it to the next regular Board of Education meeting for action. We will put the motion to a vote. Those that are in favor of this will answer yes when called, and those opposed to this will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz.
No.
Mrs. Donahue.
no.
Next is the second resolution under agenda item 1, or I'm sorry, Standing Board of Education Resolution authorizing certain actions. For the second resolution, I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the treasurer and superintendent to accept employee resignations on behalf of the board before bringing resignations to the next scheduled Board of Education meeting for action. Have a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Anyone up for discussion? Why would we write this in policy?
Because
Because,
it's procedure, not policy.
right, but there's no statutory, so according to the OSBA, there's no statutory requirements to whom the resignation should or must be delivered to. So they could deliver it to the janitor if they wanted to, the way I understand that. So if there's no requirement.
It's on our contract.
Oh, that's why.
It's a negotiated agreement with CEA.
Oh, okay.
We sort of apply that across the board to most of our staff, so, yeah.
And so that agreement states that for any resignation, it has to go to
Yes.
the superintendent or?
I did, I had to do mine
Okay,
as I recall.
all right, well, that makes more sense. I would like to go back though, can we just write it in a policy? If it's like, as soon as the contracts are done and then put it into a policy if that's, and then everybody knows. And is it just a requirement for the teachers or is it for everybody?
Well, we ask everyone to do it because, you know, we won't know to stop paying you if you don't resign and, you know, so we need that information. So we sort of, you know, tell your supervisor then reports it to the superintendent. And we put it on the board agenda for your for your approval afterwards, so.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
So we all know, and you know, they usually will write us a letter of resignation and we share that with the board, so.
So for the others, are they allowed to just submit a resignation to anybody or? Like, when you say you ask them, you just ask them like in processing and they sign the contract, but it's not in their contract. So what I'm getting at is.
It's in, well, I don't even know if it's in board policy, I'd have to view it, I can't recall. But, you know, it's typical protocol for you to turn in your resignation to your supervisor.
Right, but maybe there's a disgruntled employee, maybe they didn't understand, maybe they don't know who was supposed to go to, whatever all those. It just seems like if it was written in policy, then it'd be across the board that is everybody submits the resignation to the superintendent. Or immediate supervisor or whatever you want. And then when that happens, then you go back to policy. Because if you just ask, well, let's just say you're just asking the janitor or a custodian or whatever other position there might be that's not under a teacher contract, then all these statutory requirements would follow, right? Because there is no other requirement. So they don't have to submit it to you. They could submit it to us directly. They could submit it to their supervisor. They could submit it to anybody. And again, and then you run into, if it's withdrawn, a resignation. So must the resignation be acted upon by the BOE? No, but it can be withdrawn before effective date unless board already accepted. A resignation effective immediately and does not require BOE action, but may act to accept. And then it can be not withdrawn and the resignation can be delivered to anyone. So then all those people would fall under this. Whereas if we had a policy, it would have to go to you for everybody.
It doesn't always happen that way, I'll just tell you that. So if you create a policy now to enforcement, and we had a situation this summer where food service just stopped showing up. And we had to track that person down. And a lot of times, but eventually it comes to us. There's another piece, and I have to defer to district council on this, but there is a piece where in the past where we had somebody come in and accept a resignation, and I've given them an acknowledgement of that resignation because of this, and still I think still has to come before the board, but that's an extra step that can be put in there. I think that's the reference. That's when it says accept. Not just a paper thing.
Is there any more discussion? No. It is moved and seconded to authorize the treasurer and superintendent to accept employee resignations on behalf of the board before bringing resignations to the next scheduled Board of Education meeting for action. We will put the motion to a vote. Those that are in favor to accept employee resignations on behalf of the board before bringing resignations to the next scheduled Board of Education meeting for action will, as their names are called, answer yes. Those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
Next item to discuss is item J, approval of resolution authorizing superintendent and treasurer to serve as purchase agent. I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize superintendent and treasurer to serve as purchasing agents to initiate contracts, purchase orders, and invoices with vendors relating to supplies, services, repairs, and equipment not to exceed $25,000 for general purposes. That is services, supplies, and equipment, and $50,000 for any construction-related expenses.
I'll move.
One second.
Does anyone wish to discuss?
I would just like to know, is this 50,000 just related to the new school? Is that where you want to continue any construction project going forward?
It's up to the board. That's nice to have, when big projects arise, boiler goes out or, water main, those things can add up pretty quick. So it's nice to have that.
Feel it's useful.
Be nice to have.
Okay. But is it necessary? Because if it's over 25,000, you put it out for bid, right?
No, the law changed, it's 50.
Is it 50?
That's why in other districts that I've been at, it was
Okay.
25,000 because that's when you had to put it out to bid, and that was the
Okay.
construction. It went up when prices and costs
Yeah.
started going up, and so that went up to 50,000. Here, we just asked that goods and services be 25,000, we've gotten a little big. And you can't get a contract for 5,000 or less.
Yeah.
In our policy, I think it's 15,000. We ask that people get more than one quote, particularly 2 or 3, before we'll present anything to the board or even, visit it. So we've been doing that as well. So that is part of the board policy.
Okay.
It's just if it's, $24,999 or 25,000 even, we can sign it and get the ball rolling. If not, we put it before the board. Up to 50,000 is only for construction related.
And doesn't that policy 6320 cover for emergency situations where the superintendent does have the authority to continue the operations of the school to make emergency purchases? So if that boiler did go out and it had to be back up because it's the middle of January, would that policy cover that?
I think you still have to have a board meeting, and I'm not an attorney, and declare urgent necessity to accept a bid and start a project. So you would be closed and not operational until that happens.
So when we just have an emergency meeting then?
Yeah, you would have to have emergency meeting within 24 hours and take care of all that. So until that happened, you couldn't do anything. Yes.
Yeah, I think even the 25 is a little bit high. I would say 15, but for sure, I would not like to keep the 50,000 in there to help for construction expenditure. And is a new boiler, that's not construction anyways, right? Like, what is you guys', I'm sorry, what is your definition or the school's definition of construction?
I would say, any kind of renovation, would fall under that. We're gonna renovate bathrooms or classroom to fit additional, help with the growth. Would fall under that. In my opinion, be construction.
And does that align with like funding? So like, do you have separate rules for construction? So like where I came from, construction would be anytime that you change the square footage or the purpose of the building. If we change this into, let's say the science classroom, that would be construction. But if we just put up some walls and kept it as a media center, that's not construction, that was your typical maintenance and repair for that. So like the boiler repair, that would be replacing equipment that already exists, and then that would be construction, so. I guess so to me, construction would be those bigger items, and are those for each project or each incident? So today you would be authorized to spend $50,000 in some sort of construction, but however you define construction, and then next week you could spend another $50,000 in more construction? Is what that's saying?
That's how it's written, yes.
Authorized purchase.
So I guess that's what scares me. So in a month, you could smoke for $200,000 in constructing something. or things. So
If
you
that's
can't
how
just
little
put it
trust you have in us, that's correct, yes.
Call the question.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's the vote.
It's
Yeah.
not,
I mean, if, yes, but I don't think any of us have done that, to be frank,
but you
so.
can't take that into a court of law that.
No,
we
but,
told
you
them
know,
we're not
we-
going to, and then it happens, and that's what we were elected for. I'm not saying that I don't trust you guys, I'm just saying that doesn't sound right, that sounds like it gives you too much.
I will tell you
authority.
that I've worked in 4 districts and I've had more authority than that in every district that I've worked at. You guys are getting bigger and bigger, this district has been getting bigger and bigger, so we need to be able to make, you know, decisions and purchases. If it's something new, if it's something that, you know, requires major construction or changes, we've always brought that to the board and asked the board to review it or understand where it came from. I know that in the past that has not happened. I get that, I understand that. But even though we've had $25,000 authority, wouldn't buy a fingerprint machine without discussing it with the board, and that was well within my authority to do so. But I want to make sure that anything new is presented to the board. So I get it, I understand, but I think at the same time, when you rein it in so much, you eliminate all efficiency. You know, you just eliminate it altogether, and we can't do anything without a constant need for a board meeting, and that's not efficient at all. So, you know, like I said, I've been doing this quite a while. Yeah, and so.
Mrs. Leslie, I've called the question. I've called the question.
Okay, so you're gonna tell me what that
The
means,
vote. The vote, I'm calling the question.
you can't stop discussion.
I certainly can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then, it is moved and seconded to authorize superintendent and treasurer to serve as purchasing agents to initiate contracts, purchase orders, and invoices with vendors relating to supplies, services, repairs, and equipment not to exceed $25,000 for general purposes, i.e. services, supplies, and equipment, and $50,000 for any construction-related expenses. We will put the motion to a vote. Those in favor will answer yes, those opposed will answer no. Mrs. Hageman, please call the roll.
Mr. B. Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mr. Elam,
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz.
No, and only because we didn't get a chance to finish the discussion, so I don't feel comfortable voting on it until it was all hashed out. So if you could add that to the minutes, please. All the agenda items have been completed. Are there any other items anyone wishes to address? If there is no objection, we will now adjourn the meeting. This meeting is now adjourned as of 8:05 PM.
So we're gonna do a motion in a second.
It said we didn't have to if all the agenda items were completed, but I can if you want.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:05.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Elam.
Yep.
Mrs. Butler,
Yes.
Mrs. Leskowitz.
Yes.
Mr. B.
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Keep it up in the, if you ever need. Please.
Right, does anybody wanna need a break or anything, or are we
I knew you did.
gonna roll into the?
I'm not.
Maybe take a 10-minute break, like give everybody that time.